Maamer Vov of Kuntres Umaayan. Let's get right into it, because we were just discussing about the moon. I love the moon, but the moon got smaller. It got shrunk. The moon got shrunk by Hashem down, which is talking about, we explained last Maamer, about Malchus, how it goes down into this world. Now, the moon was complaining that it's smaller. The moon was complaining, it became smaller, and now it's sad it's smaller. So how did Hashem make up for it? Vahine appears al zeh. The way Hashem consoled the moon, the way Hashem made up for it, is Sha'amar La, Hashem said to the moon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what did Hashem say? After he said, go make yourself smaller. Who? It is. You ready for what's going to make up for being smaller? Tzaddikim yikru al shmecha. Tzaddikim will be called by your name. So at least you get something out of it. Tzaddikim are called by your name. Now, interesting, it doesn't mean that tzaddikim are called after the moon. I've never heard of tzaddikim being called the moon. Do you know any tzaddik who's called the moon? The moon HaKadosh? No, never heard of such a thing. Rather, what does it mean? It talks about Shmuel HaKotan, David HaKotan. It talks about all these great people that are called the small one. What aspect of the moon are they named after? The fact that it's smaller. You see, if the moon wouldn't have been smaller, the tzaddikim wouldn't have been named after it. So there's something great that comes out from being small, that these tzaddikim are called after it. Shmuel is called HaKotan. David is called the small one. Let me give you another example. By the way, obviously can't compare to Shmuel and David, a great Nevi'im, tzaddikim, but there was a Yid, a big Talmud Chacham, who lived in New York, and his name was Menashe Klein. So Klein in Yiddish means small. So he was a humble guy. So he would sign off on letters, even though he was a big Talmud Chacham. He would write his name, Menashe HaKotan, Menashe the small one. It's very cute. Why? Why? Maybe compared to Hashem, all of us are small, no matter how great. So, the explanation is like this. You ready? Just like the moon became smaller, now the tzaddikim named after it. Similarly, Biridas and Neshama Slavish Beguvin Evish Bahamis, when the Neshama comes out into this world to be invested in a body and the animalistic soul. Then what happens? A lot of things can go wrong. Imagine the Neshama was up with Hashem. Tachas Kisei HaKavod, your Neshama was just spiritual, living in a spiritual world, and then you get sent down to this world. And there's lots of problems in this world. You get caught up with a mafia. Who knows what could go wrong? It could become hisgoil. You know what that means? It could become disgusting. All paths are under assumption that there's going to be harm. What does that mean? That when you go on a trip, when you go on a journey, it's a risk. It's a risk. It's a lot safer to stay home. On the way, you can meet bandits, you can meet wolves, you can find a small cottage in the forest with a small Hanukkah lichtel in the window. There's all sorts of things happen when you go on a journey. So when the neshama is journeying down to this world, it's taking a big risk. Why is it so risky? Because at the opening, your sin is crouching. What does this mean? So after Cain killed Hevel, you guys ever read Parshas Bereishis? It's one of my favorite Parshas Bereishis. In my top 53 parshas. So it says in Parshas Bereishis that Cain killed Hevel, and then Hashem came and started asking him, "Hey, where's Hevel, your brother?" And he starts complaining, "Oh, am I supposed to watch out for my brother? Am I my brother's God?" So he had a lot of chutzpah. So here's the thing: Hashem told him, if you fix yourself up, if you fix your ways, if you stop being a mensch, then it's all going to be good. You're going to be forgiven. But if not, by the entrance of the grave, your sin is crouching. The sins you've done, especially the sin of killing his brother, is waiting for you for when you pass away. It doesn't go away by itself. So when someone comes out to this world, he could have lots of sins down here that could grab onto him. Yeah? Or maybe he grabs onto them. That's a more accurate definition. Menachem, do sins grab onto you or do you grab onto them? Do sins grab onto you? Is it a risk for the neshama to come down here in case the sin grabs onto him? Or is the person going to grab onto the sin? They grab each other simultaneously. A big hug. Yeah, best friends. Nevertheless, even though there's so much risk in case he gets a surprise bear hug from a giant sin, Aveya, it's still worth this descent of the neshama to come down to this physical world. You know why? B'shvil ha'aliyah, for the sake of the aliyah rising up afterwards, and nifla, the incredible aliyah that's done through this. So there's a massive advantage that comes out through this afterwards, and we're going to see that in the continuation of the paragraph. But first, I want to mention, firstly, you guys know the Chassidus niggin about Yerid Zoi L'Tzerech Aliyah? There's a niggin, there's a whole intent, meaning, and wording of the niggin is that in the neshama, I'm just going to say it in English, I'm not going to sing it right here. No, real niggin. When the neshama comes down into the body, oy vey, it has to come down from, then it quotes the words of the Zohar, from a high roof to a low pit. So the highest heights to the lowest lows. And then it finishes off, this Yerida is for the sake of an Aliyah. Exactly. This Yerida is for the sake of an Aliyah. I don't think my voice goes high enough to do that. This Yerida is for the sake of an Aliyah, and then it's going to be all worth it. So it's an investment. It's an investment. You know, there was I just want to mention that the Baal Shem Tov once went. It's a great story. You ready for the story? The Baal Shem Tov was traveling, and he came across in a town, there was a Parush. Now, a Parush was a man, a hermit. He locked himself away from the whole world in a side room of the local shul. And he spent his whole day learning and davening. He didn't contact anyone. He didn't do any business. He was just purely involved in spiritual matters. So the Baal Shem Tov, who no one knew who he was dressed as a simple man, walks into the room and sees this holy man's learning and davening. The Baal Shem Tov goes over and he says, Shalom Aleichem, how are you doing, sir? So the guy just ignores him. So the Baal Shem Tov says even louder, hey, how are you? The guy ignores him. The Baal Shem Tov starts shouting, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? So the Parish decides, you know what? I'm tuning this guy out. This farmer, this simpleton, this idiot, I'm just going to ignore him completely. So then the Baal Shem Tov says, why are you denying Hashem his parnasa, his livelihood? Now the guy's shocked. He's like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm denying something from Hashem? I literally spent my whole day praying while you're driving me crazy with your silly questions. So Baal Shem Tov told him, when a Yid says, Baruch Hashem, that's providing Hashem's parnasa. That's how Hashem makes a living. How do I know that? Because it says Hashem sits on the tefillas, the praise of the Yidden. That sitting on is a term for he dwells on, he establishes himself on. That's how you make a living. That's a term, such a term in Yiddish. So, what's the meaning of this? What does it mean Hashem needs to make a living? I think the meaning of this is that Hashem made the whole world. Hashem invested a lot in the world. What does it mean invested? Hashem had to take, like we learned about in this Maamer, Hashem had to take all his Or and Chayus and bring it all the way down into the world. But then, when's he going to get a return on his investment? So after making the entire spiritual universe, all the Seder Shtalshlos, and after making the whole universe and the world and the trees and the people and the Yidden and giving them the Torah, after that, when a Yid is walking down the street and someone's like, hey, how's it going? And he says, Baruch Hashem, meaning he realizes that everything good in the world comes from Hashem. That's Hashem's return on his investment. It was worth making the world and worth diminishing so-called himself, worth bringing himself down to such a level of the finite, the limited, the dark place, in order that a Yid down there will recognize that everything is from Hashem. That's what the Baal Shem Tov is telling him. That when we say Baruch Hashem, we're giving Hashem his parnasa. Fine. So, do we have time to go weiter? Menachem, what's the time? You have the time? 9 o'clock. Okay, we're going to continue tomorrow. Can't wait.